Look, if you're watching with the kids, perhaps tell them to pop outside with the footy for a few minutes or go and tidy their room. Because I want to talk about something that's just horrifying and that really no kid should ever have to contemplate or confront. But sadly, too many actually do have to confront this, especially in the US, but also around the world, where the American atrocities must have an unnerving impact to all the children who hear about them. Look, the death of any child is tragic, as we all know. It's just heart-wrenching. It's against the order of nature. But when monsters, known or unknown, deliberately take away the lives of children, it's just beyond evil. It sickens us to our core. Yet in the US, for all kinds of unfathomable reasons, they have this scourge of school shootings. And as we saw last week in Uvalde, Texas, the places where parents in our country drop off our kids confident they'll be nurtured, challenged and safe for the day, well, in the US, these places have become hunting grounds for the most disturbed and depraved men, because they are always men, usually young men. The perpetrators are typically marginalised souls, tortured loners, whose grievances and alarming habits always appear clear in hindsight. And in the US, getting military-grade weapons is often about as difficult as upsizing a fast food order. The death toll from mass shootings in the US continues to rise. The grotesque theatre of the school shooting aftermath plays out yet again, but precious little changes. And now the US President, Joe Biden, has addressed the nation at prime time with candles lit for the fallen, and like presidents before him, appealed to Congress to pass gun control laws.
Do something. Just do something. For God's sake, do something. After Columbine, after Sandy Hook, after Charleston, after Orlando, after Las Vegas, after Parkland, nothing has been done.
It's just pitiful, really, isn't it, to see the president begging the legislators to do something. Biden shared with Americans some statistics that you'd think would be enough to shake the very foundations of their gun culture. Statistics that you would think might spark political action.
According to new data just released by the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, guns are the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. The #1 killer. More than car accidents, more than cancer.
The #1 killer of children. And think of this. Think of the horrific job police officers have in the United States, constantly confronting armed criminals, and how many police tragically are killed on the job. Well, over the past 2 decades, more school-aged children have been killed by guns than on-duty police officers. On those numbers, being a school student is a hazardous occupation.
For God's sake, how much more carnage are we willing to accept? How many more innocent American lives must be taken before we say enough, enough?
The proposals put forward by the president would seem the bare minimum by our standards, just changes to the law to make sure that guns can't be purchased without a background check, demanding that gun owners keep them under lock and key, imposing an age requirement of 21 years for buying assault rifles, and banning high-capacity magazines.
Why in God's name should an ordinary citizen be able to purchase an assault weapon that holds 30-round magazines that let mass shooters fire hundreds of bullets in a matter of minutes? The damage was so devastating in Uvalde, parents had to do DNA swabs to identify the remains of their children. 9 and 10-year-old children. Enough.
Tragically, such is the lack of political will, such is the resistance from the gun lobby, and particularly their sway over Republican representatives, that no reform is certain. Just like other massacres, Uvalde might not be a catalyst for meaningful reform. And this blight on America, this blight against humanity, is set to continue.
And let there be no mistake about the psychological trauma that gun violence leaves behind. Imagine being that little girl, that brave little girl in Uvalde, who smeared blood off her murdered friend's body on her own face to lie still among the corpses in her classroom and pretend she was dead in order to stay alive. Imagine what it'd be like for her to walk down the hallway of any school again. Imagine what it's like for children who experience this kind of trauma every day in school, in the streets, in communities all across America. Imagine what it's like for so many parents to hug their children goodbye in the morning, not sure whether they'll come back home.
Now, of course, changes to gun laws won't eliminate this horror. If there wasn't one more weapon sold in the US ever again, it would still be awash with guns for decades to come. So fixing the social and mental health issues behind these atrocities might be even more effective. But gun control must help. Any society that makes it easy for anyone to get their hands on military-grade weapons is obviously inviting hell to descend on its people. If ever there was a time to hope for Joe Biden to show some strength, overcome his wobbles and surprise us all with some political success, now is that time.